Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone, and the Honorable our lecturer, Sir Benny Wijaya. Firstly, let me introduce myself first. My name is Putri Sanawiyah, coming from 3BB class. On this occasion, I would like to deliver my presentation about the journal articles review, with the title of journal is Tourism Recovery Strategy Against COVID-19 Pandemic, created by Shih-Shuo Yeh, published on 21st August 2020, Journal of Tourism Recreation Research, volume 46, number 2, page 188 until 194. Alright, let me begin from the introduction. First of all, as we know that travel is necessary and always connected with the tourism activities, whether it can be travel by land transportation, water transportation, or even air transportation. And there are many factors that hinder travel. It also can give the impact on tourism industry. One of the examples that we can take is COVID-19 pandemic. It's become international issue since 2020 and affect many things in our social lives. Moreover, there are many countries from around the world have felt the effect of this pandemic, and one of them is in Taiwan. In Taiwan, dealing with this virus itself is only part of the dilemma. Although Taiwan has been able to learn from the experience of SARS, but they must pay attention for the consequences of this problem, such as an economic downturn. So that's why this study is purposed to examine the contingency planning for mitigating economic drawbacks caused by pandemics, specifically in tourism industry. Now, I'm going to explain about the literature review of this study. There are 3 points that I will explain. The first one is about disaster management. Tourism crisis and disaster management, or we can call it as TCDM, is one of the efforts between departments as a recovery strategy in dealing with disaster or crisis, including with the COVID-19 pandemic. So basically, they organize their crises and disasters into some categories, and then they collect the data or information about it, so it can facilitate our understanding about them. So as we know that each disaster or each crisis is likely to be unique, so that's why it is important for us to document as much information as possible and then learn from the experience, from the past experience, to be prepared for the future possibilities. And the second one is about interdisciplinary approaches. It is one of the methods to redefine problems outside of the normal boundaries. So that means actually we can redefine problems not only from one discipline but also from several disciplines. This may include political, economic, environmental, social science, marketing, and other fields. And after that, we can reach the solution based on a new understanding of complex situations. Well, this study requires an interdisciplinary approach to provide a more holistic understanding of the subject. Because we discussed about the outbreak of COVID-19 that affects tourism industry worldwide, so some of the examples are all the international flights are grounded, cross-border activity is discouraged if not barred, tourism demands are dwindling, and there are many employees who lose their jobs. Therefore, it is essential to have an interdisciplinary collaboration in the investigation of TCDM of COVID-19 situation. And the last point is about the recent outbreak of the pandemic. The recent outbreak of pandemic erupted most likely from Wuhan, China in the end of 2019. The origin name of this pandemic was the novel coronavirus, but currently we know it as COVID-19. At that time, this pandemic is still obscure, so that's why there are many speculation and conspiracy theories about the origin of the virus floating around. And moreover, this pandemic also has effects all of the sectors in our social life. Now I'm going to explain about the methodology of this study. There are 3 steps in the methodology. The first one is a research method. Because this study is inductive, so the researcher used the interview method and the data collected is qualitative. There are 3 main focus of discussion during the interview, which are first, which business is most likely to be affected by COVID-19? And second, how are these impacts interrelated? And the last, how can one effectively mitigate the impact and prepare for the post-crisis recovery? The next step is interview selection. The interviews were conducted in March 2020. 12 interviewees were selected based on their expertise and knowledge about either the tourism industry or even COVID-19's impact. The interviews include 4 scholars in tourism-related fields, 4 practitioners in tourism industry, 2 government officials who handling the tourism-related policies, and then 2 journalists. Well, there are some reasons why the researchers choose them. The first is the practitioners were included as the data contribution because they are worst affected by the impact and aware to their needs. And the policymakers were included because they implement the policies and know the obstacles that they may encounter while doing so. And the last one, the scholars and journalists were included because they are up to date on the pertinent issue. Continue to the last step is data analysis. Well, the researchers used 2 tools, which are Excel spreadsheet and also the software or SPSS modeler. The software allowed the researcher to organize the data and conduct a quick overview of them to derive meaningful results more effectively. Now, I will explain about the main point of this study, which are result and discussion. After the interview, so the researcher can get the result in some points. The first point is about the impact of COVID-19 on tourism industry. The result of the analysis is shown in the picture. We can learn that the size of the circle represents the frequency of each term, and then the thickness of the line represents the relationship between them. From that picture, we can conclude that the most frequently recognized words or terms are tourism and COVID-19, since they are the focal point of our discussion. And then the next words in prominence are travel, transportation, hotel, F&B, and also the nature. It should be noted that the word travel in the picture specifically refers to the travel agency industry. And then one can also see other related words such as airlines, show, duty or duty-free shops, beach, and also the forest. The result reveals that COVID-19 affects a wide range of tourism-related business. Some business suffers the loss of customers, which may cause unemployment. And one of the purpose of these pictures is to identify the interrelationship among them. So we can know that from the picture that there are many relationships between each term. And the next point is about the types of impact on tourism industry incurred by COVID-19. There are 3 points here. The first one is international dispute. As I mentioned earlier in the literature review, the origin of the virus is greatly disputed among countries, so it affects the trading situation among certain nations, which may be followed by some long-term unpredictable ramifications. Moreover, the international dispute also leads to a certain level of discrimination and also the violence. And the second impact is economically related. As we know that the COVID-19 has worse affected to the economic, such as economic downturn, company walls, and also there are many employers who lost their jobs. And the last one is about the policy. Since the COVID-19 was released in 2020, there are many new regulations made by the government to reduce the risk of the COVID-19, such as social distancing and also stop travel. However, this regulation of social distancing creates mistrust between people and can lead to discrimination and also the violence. Moreover, social events, mega events, and other crowded activities are still banned, so we cannot promote our tourism destination to others. Then the problem is even worse in countries with a large population of immigrants, and some of them may be difficult to return to their home country or place of work, and the other cases they may have difficulty finding shelter during the observational quarantine. And the last discussion is about effective TCDM. As I have explained in the methodology, one of our focus of discussion is to find the proper way to deal with this situation. So that's why the researcher has concluded that there are 3 effective TCDM to deal with this situation, which are the first, temperance. Most interviewees agree that the main focus of TCDM is not to overexert the limited resources, which include budget, human resources, and others. So instead of over-promises of cash infusions that might bankrupt the government, the proper way to deal with a slow economy is to help companies limp through this crisis. As long as the company survives, all of the employees can return to work once the crisis is over. And the second step is prioritizing tasks. In a chaotic situation in which multiple things all happen at once, it is important to identify the most crucial components and prioritize them accordingly. There are 3 main areas that require attention, which are safety, physical recovery, and business recovery. Sometimes in such a situation like this pandemic, it is impossible to have a perfect solution, so that's why the best thing that we can do is only minimizing the damage. And the last step is information sharing should be transparent. Misinformation can make the pandemic worse by inciting people against each other, which could lead to various social issues such as violence and also crimes. So it is important for us to build the trust by open communication, and it will lead to more effective collaborative effort in TCDM and post-crisis recovery. So now I'm going to explain about the conclusion about this study. Based on the result and discussion that we have got, so there are 2 main points that we can use as the 2 rhythm recovery strategy against the COVID-19 pandemic. Both of them are the first, the role of government. Government plays a major role in the fight against the COVID-19 on many levels, such as the recovery of the economy, which includes tourism industry. So that's why it is important to have open communication, to build rapport, and also a good working relationship. We can take the example from Taiwan. The government of Taiwan has made a press conference every day to deliver the latest news to the public through the media. And the second is business recovery. Tourism-related business should try to weather the storm, so they can use the government-sponsored loans available with no interest to help their business get through this turbulent time. And the last, this study also has some suggestions. The first one is because the study is limited to use the qualitative research, so the researchers suggest to use the quantitative research method to provide another perspective on the event. And the second, future studies are advised to continue observing the situations to find more research direction. Well, I think that's all about my journal articles review. Thank you for your attention. Lastly, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.